Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I am back with my sidekick. We're going to hope to record this video whilst he's napping. I've also got a chicken roasting in the oven which is going to need taking out mid recording this video, but mum life means we have to multitask, and actually we become very good at it. And what I find is we become very productive in those short bursts of time. Like if you know you've got a 2-hour nap, you can tick through 10 things on the to-do list and do multiple things at once. Something that I feel like is one of those skills that women have potentially more than men. But in this video, I'm going to be talking you through 8 things that I wish I knew before I became a first-time mum. And these aren't the sort of like common things that you see everywhere online. These are genuinely a lot of the things I had no idea about and only found out when I was going through it. So hopefully this is going to be helpful for you if you are expecting, or maybe you are a new mum and you're wondering whether like some of these things are normal, etc. So let's kick off before Mr. Man wakes up, even though he should be settling to go to sleep. So I've got some notes to my left. If you see me looking over there, that is why. But number one is, and this is actually something that my mother-in-law kind of gave me as a piece of advice. And I think it's really helpful, especially for like a mindset shift when you are entering motherhood and you're like, everything seems to go out the window. Like I'm someone who used to love routines and I would really stick to my routines. But number one is basically see your day as a 24-hour cycle versus like the usual day and night. Because your routines will go out the window, you'll be waking up multiple times throughout the night, and actually seeing it as a 24-hour cycle for me was really helpful to kind of let go of like, oh my god, it's 11 p.m, why aren't I asleep yet? Or why am I awake at 5 a.m, you know, whatever it is that you might be experiencing. And really just work in a 24-hour cycle, because that's really going to help you to just create different rhythms. You know, you're in a different phase of your life, so different rhythms are needed. Okay, we had to have a little pause there. Mr. Man was getting a little bit fussy, but anyway. So yeah, that's number one. See your day as 24-hour cycles. Let go of the sort of typical day, night, morning, afternoon routine that maybe you were used to, and just create a new rhythm within those 24 hours. Okay, number 2. Now, this is sort of one that I could probably create a whole video on, but the second thing that I wish I knew before having a baby is the kind of benefits of tracking feeds early on. Now, my husband and I both decided that we didn't really want to use apps where unnecessary, and we also don't want to use gadgets where unnecessary. So we've tried to really streamline apps or gadgets that we use. Like we don't really have any gadgets thinking about it, and we only used one app at the beginning, which I think we used for the first maybe 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks maximum. And that was really to track feeds. And it was mainly so that I could remember which side I'd fed on and also how long he was feeding for. And because he was born 3 weeks early, we found this to be quite helpful, because we wanted to make sure that he was feeding well and enough and kind of growing, which he really did. He put on he got back to his birth weight within, I think, like 8 days, and they allow up to 2 weeks. So that was fantastic. But I always think with these things, like we very much took it with a pinch of salt. Like it's easy to get obsessive and to track everything. Like you can track food, you can track poo, you can track number of nappies, amount of sleep. But we were using kind of common sense, common knowledge when it came to things like nappies, and just being like, okay, is each nappy, does it have something in it? Is there wee, is there poo, whatever? And that was really our indication, rather than feeling like we needed to track everything. But we used an app called, I can't remember now because I've deleted it. I think it was called, I'll link it below. I think it was called like Baby Change or something. It was like pretty like free to use, very user friendly, but it was helpful to track feeds for that reason of which boob and for how long. And then we could also see a little bit of a pattern emerging, or if he wasn't feeding enough or feeding kind of every hour, then we would understand, okay, it's cluster feeding, or I don't know, whatever it is. So it's kind of like knowledge is power, but equally be mindful of not getting obsessive over tracking everything, because we always say, like me and my husband, like our parents didn't have any of these things and they managed absolutely fine. And especially as women, like we have such strong intuition, like you'll know whether there's something that maybe isn't as you expected or is different to usual. So if we use too many apps, and that can override that intuition that we have. The third thing that I wish I knew before having a baby was what feeding cues are. So cues as in CUES, as in signals, signs. What are the signs that your baby is hungry? So a couple of things I had no idea about was when they kind of turn their head to their side, almost like when they're looking for the boob. That's number one. Number two, opening their mouth. That's kind of like an obvious one, but equally, maybe we didn't know that that's what they're looking for. Number three, like nuzzling into your chest or nuzzling into whoever's holding them. So even if it's like your partner or like a male figure, they can still nuzzle into the chest, and that is a sign of a feeding cue. Also like hand to mouth movements. The other one that I found out only recently was like when they clench their fists. That can be tiredness, but it can also be hunger. And then increased fussiness. So those are sort of all signs that when you're aware of them, suddenly makes sense, because you're like, actually, yeah, when was the last time I fed? Are they doing some of these cues? Yes. Okay, that means hunger. Because otherwise, like before he was here, even though you kind of know, okay, maybe they cry, that means they're hungry, but it doesn't always mean they're hungry. It might mean that they're tired or that they're too hot, whereas those are specific cues that mean that they are hungry. And as like a bonus one, whilst I remember, another cues that I wasn't aware of was like tiredness. So one really clear one, which I had no idea about, was like reddening of the eyebrows. That means they're tired. And it's like, who would have known? Because I certainly wasn't told that. Okay, the fourth thing that I wish I knew before becoming a mum or having a baby was the hunger and thirst that comes with breastfeeding. Oh my goodness. People say that you get that during pregnancy. Honestly, the hunger and thirst in breastfeeding is incomparable to that in pregnancy. Like, it is never ending. I constantly have my massive Stanley, like I think it's about 2 litres. I probably get through at least 3 a day. I am not exaggerating. And the hunger, like constantly snacking, which makes sense, but actually I was looking at ChatGPT and online, and it says that you can burn around, well, on average you burn around 500 calories per day if you are breastfeeding. That is equivalent of like a very long run every single day, let alone everything else that you are doing. Carrying the baby, feet, like walking around, doing admin, like if you're exercising. So it's really making sure that you're aware of that so that you're drinking enough, feeding enough, because those are also things that will affect your milk supply if you are breastfeeding. As a side note, apparently overnight oats and chia seeds are a really good source of food for helping with milk production. So that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, otherwise it's always being hydrated. And I've also found that having on-the-go snacks, like ready-to-go snacks, are really, really helpful. So like I always make overnight oats the night before, so I've got them in the fridge ready to eat. Things you can eat with one hand are really, really helpful when you're breastfeeding, whether that's like yogurts or fruits or nuts, like healthy oat bars. I've made flapjacks multiple times with lots of lovely like seeds and grains and nut butters in. So thinking about what you are fueling yourself with and preparing yourself in advance so that you've got like really nutrient dense snacks that are going to support your energy levels and also your milk supply if you're breastfeeding. One thing that people do, which I personally haven't, just because I feel like it would interrupt me a little bit more, but a couple of friends that I was speaking to say they actually had like snacks by their bed when they're breastfeeding, because they found that when they woke up to breastfeed, they were absolutely starving. So things like rice cakes, nuts, dried fruits are probably good things to have. But as I say, it's kind of up to you, but just be prepared for snacks and ready to eat meals or on-the-go bits that you can also use with one hand, because that's definitely a skill that you learn as a new mum if you're breastfeeding, is that things need to be eaten with one hand or one arm a lot of the time. Okay, number 5, things I wish I knew early on. Number 5 of things that I wish I knew before I became a mum. And this is very fortunately something that we just did kind of by no choice but the hospitals, and that is to introduce a bottle really early on. Now, we had to go back into hospital on day 5 for his jaundice. He had to have the light treatment, which I could very much do a video on if that would be of interest. Jaundice in early babies is really, really common, and it's not dangerous. You just need to have like the light therapy treatment to help flush it out the system. But anyway, because we went back in for day 5, They wanted to better understand how much food he was taking in, which obviously you can't really measure, or you can't measure when you're breastfeeding. So I had to start pumping at day 5, something that I was planning on doing pretty early on anyway, and then feeding the bottle to him so that we could see how much he was drinking. Now, this worked out really, really well because now, well, ever since that day, day 5, my husband does one of the feeds at night using a bottle, and that is express milk, 50% express milk, 50% formula. Mainly because we wanted him to not be exclusively reliant on breast milk, just in case there was ever a time when I wasn't around, or I don't know, my husband needed to feed him when I was out. And then also so that we were kind of the thinking, and it seems to be the case, that formula helps babies sleep longer because it kind of fills them up. It's almost like a little protein shake. Anyway, that's a bit of a side topic, but because of that reason, we introduced a bottle from day 5, and he took to the bottle straight away. The sort of what's worth keeping in mind is if you don't introduce a bottle, but then realise, sort of 4 or 5 months down the line, or 2-3 months down the line, that you don't want to be the sole one breastfeeding, you want someone else to help with the feeds, then they might be a bit fussy when it comes to taking the bottle and kind of reject it. So my recommendation, and something that I'm glad that I did, but didn't necessarily kind of factor in because, as I say, we just had to do this, is to introduce a bottle early on. Not only to help them get used to a bottle, but also so that your husband or partner can support with feeding, because they do, feeds take, 30 minutes to an hour of a time. And if you're the only one doing it, it might get to the point where you really want someone else to support you so that you can get extra stints of sleep, or you've got a bit more freedom and flexibility to go out and about, but also the reassurance that someone else is able to feed your baby rather than just you. So introducing a bottle early on is something that I'd recommend, and you don't have to use formula. You could pump at some point during the day and then give the express milk in the form of a bottle. And that leads me on nicely to pumping. So as I say, I had to pump at day 5 when I went back into the hospital. This was always something that I was planning on doing. I don't know when I would have started, probably not for a couple of weeks, but actually I'm really glad that I started when I did. I think the school of thought is if you wait a little bit longer, then your milk supply is kind of in more, but mine seemed to be in by day 5. So personally, I didn't have any problems with my milk supply and pumping from day 5. And so I kind of wish, this is something that I would now tell new or expecting mums, is that you can start pumping early on. I use the LV cordless pump. I will link it below. I really recommend it. It's really easy to use. It has good battery life. It's pretty discreet. I haven't used it like out in public, but essentially you could put it in your bra, have a t-shirt on or a jumper, and like no one would really notice, and it seems to be very effective. It's comfortable. So what I do, and this is also something that I wish I knew, so this is kind of like a bonus point, is between the hours of 1 and 5, I'm pretty sure, more or less, AM, 1 and 5 AM, your milk production is highest. So this is when your milk hormones are most active, and this is when you are kind of stimulating or producing the milk for the day ahead. So what I do is I pump at some point during that time. Now, some part of me kind of thinks it's a bit counterproductive because I could be asleep at that time, but it literally takes me 10 minutes to fill up the cup on the LV pump, which I think is about 200 ml. So I choose to do that. Now, actually last night was the first night I didn't do that. I pumped at like 6 a.m. because he woke up. I was like, I'm awake now, I'm not going to be able to get back to sleep. And I have enough milk supply in the fridge that I thought, do you know what? If during the night I don't wake up, then, I'll just leave it. And it wasn't that I didn't wake up, it was just that I was like, I'm going to prioritize sleep tonight. So I did it at 6 a.m. So personally, that's when works well for me. I only do that one pump the whole day, and then I build up a bit of a stash in the fridge. So in the fridge, we've probably now got around 300 ml, and we're only really using 50-60 ml of it per day, because then we're topping up with the formula for the rest of the amount that he takes in a bottle. So that works really, really well. And the milk that you produce between those hours of sort of, say, midnight to 5 a.m. Contains higher volumes of melatonin, also something that I didn't know until recently. And so this is why it's really good if you can pump at that time and keep that milk in one container, and then feed that to the baby sort of late afternoon, evening, or overnight. you're going to help them fall back asleep because of the melatonin levels in the milk. Now, someone said to me once, ideally, if you're pumping during the day, you want to keep that milk stored separately to the milk that you pump in the evening, because the milk during the day doesn't contain as much melatonin, and I believe also contains more components to help them sort of be active and alert. So double check the kind of data on that, but I'm pretty sure that is the case. So if you're trying to be like extra cautious or mindful of their sleeping, then I would suggest keeping the milk separately. So that was point number 6. Number 7, the 7th thing that I wish I knew before becoming a mum, is the amount and level of noise that babies make in the hours of, say, like 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. And I'm not talking like little cute grunts and snuffles. I'm talking high volume squeaks, squirms, wriggles, not cries. It's all like their way of communicating, but it really can be quite loud. And newborns, I'm just looking at what the stats say. So newborns spend around 50% of their sleep in active sleep. And so this is like their version of REM sleep, which means that they are kind of active, but they are asleep. Their eyes are closed, but their arms might be moving around. There might be like grunting, squeaking, all the kind of squawking noises that you can imagine. I had no idea that this was a thing. And it wasn't necessarily alarming when I found out, but when we were experiencing it, but you're like, are they awake? Like, should I pick them up? But ultimately they're very, very happy. And so you just have to kind of leave them. And what my husband and I do is we actually use earplugs, just the sort of foam ones that muffle the noise. So we can still hear the noises, they're just muffled, and you can 100% hear cries. So that was something that helped us. But what I noted down is that around 4 to 8 weeks, sleep cycles are maturing and they're becoming more neurologically active. So that's why these noises are there. Nothing to be alarmed about. Can be a little bit off-putting, but honestly now I've kind of got used to it, and I know that he's absolutely fine, so I don't have any concerns. I don't feel like I need to rush over. They're just communicating and in active sleep. Okay, number 7. This is something that I was told by my cousin kind of late on in pregnancy, but no one else had mentioned it to me. And this is the night sweats that you get postpartum. I think I first had like proper night sweats maybe at after week 1, and it probably lasted a good 2 weeks. I can't remember exactly, but the night sweats are intense, and no one tells you about this. Every single night, waking up drenched to the point that one night, he was sleeping on my chest. I'd done breastfeeding, he was sleeping on my chest, I was kind of dozing in and out. And then my husband picked him up to put him in his Moses basket, and he was like, oh my God, he's so wet, what's happened? I was like, that's my sweat. And one of my friends who has it, because I believe everyone has it, let me know if you haven't, her husband thought that she'd gone and had a shower and washed her hair because of the night sweat. So it is a thing. It's nothing to be concerned about. Yes, your pajamas will get wet, your sheets will get wet, you'll feel super sweaty, but it's due to the hormone crash after birth. So not only are we recovering from birth, not only are we learning how to look after a new baby, but we're also dealing with hormone crashes, night sweats, breastfeeding. It's a lot. And apparently the 2 hormones that drop drastically after birth are estrogen and progesterone. And these are particularly high during birth. So this crash is what causes the night sweats to happen. And it's basically your body getting rid of lots of extra fluid as well that it might have been carrying during birth. So it's completely normal. I don't know how long it goes on for. As I say, I think mine went on for a couple of weeks, but it's nothing to be concerned about. You're not ill, you're not unwell. One of my friends said that she got really cold from it and it was affecting her pumping. So all of these things are things to be mindful of, but rest assured, you're not alone. It's not strange. This is something that, as far as I'm aware, happens with every woman postpartum. So well done us for another thing that we're kind of trying to navigate in this 4th trimester period. And then what was my final point? That was number 7. Oh, I think I did 2 number 7s. So they were my 8 things that I wish I knew. I'd love to hear if there's anything else that's like come up that you wish you knew. Maybe we can start like a little bit of a thread in the comments below for anyone else who's watching this video and is kind of Googling or YouTubing things to be aware of before becoming a mum. It could be a really helpful source of knowledge. My last video was my birth video, so make sure that you check that out if you're interested. I was induced at 37 weeks. I had a positive experience. It was intense at the time, but generally it was really, really positive. So if you have any questions about like induction or kind of preterm birth, I had an epidural with forceps. But yeah, as I say, that's on my channel. I will also link it below if you want to have a look. And hopefully you found this helpful. Let me know if you have any questions or you want me to go into any more detail, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.